She gave him medical aid without clearance. That's an automatic suspension, the hospital administrator said stiffly, watching the nurse quietly return her access badge. She didn't plead, didn't push back. She simply handed over her credentials and walked out, head high. Hours later, the quiet hum of the hospital lobby was interrupted as the elevator chimed. Out stepped a decorated officer in full military uniform. He walked with purpose, scanning the room before asking in a commanding voice, "Where can I find Nurse Rachel Meyers? If you believe doing the right thing shouldn't come with punishment, type respect in the comments." Rachel Meyers, 36, had worked at Riverbend Medical Center for over 10 years. Her calm demeanor, steady hands, and habit of addressing everyone, young or old, with a respectful sir or ma'am, had made her a trusted face across departments. That Wednesday, a gaunt man limped into the ER, skin weathered. Eyes hollow, he wore a faded military dog tag. His ID read, Daniel Keegan. His leg was gashed and badly swollen. He was visibly dehydrated. The front desk worker glanced at his chart, muttering under her breath, "No active insurance on file." Rachel, who had been nearby, paused. "That doesn't mean we turn him away," she said. The shift supervisor shook her head. "We can't admit him. He's not in the registry." Rachel didn't flinch. "Then I'll handle it, off the record." She grabbed a trauma kit, cleaned the wound carefully, applied antibiotics, and handed him a granola bar from her purse. Keegan winced from the sting of disinfectant. "Ma'am, I don't want to make things complicated for you," he said softly. Rachel offered a gentle smile. "You put yourself on the line for this country. The least I can do is patch you up." "Right." His tired, war-worn eyes met hers. "Thank you," he said, barely louder than a whisper. She smiled. "You didn't see me, and you're not leaving here limping." By the next morning, Rachel was summoned upstairs. No explanations, just a formal reprimand. "You violated medical procedure," the admin said. "Unauthorized medication dispensing." Rachel stood tall. "I helped a veteran in need." The administrator didn't budge. "You're suspended, indefinitely. This is not up for discussion." Her locker was cleaned out in silence. No one spoke as she passed through the corridors. No handshakes, no farewell, just the quiet shuffle of a nurse who had always followed her heart. Outside, sunlight hit her eyes like a slap. She clutched a box of her belongings tightly to her chest. Her ID badge was missing from her scrubs, and it felt like a part of her identity had been peeled away. Sitting behind the wheel of her car, she exhaled deeply for the first time that day. "I'd do it again," she murmured to herself. Daniel's eyes flashed in her memory. That look of dignified gratitude. No job title, no paycheck, could ever replace that. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. Messages from co-workers, mostly vague. A few brave ones outright said they were proud of her. That wasn't enough to pay bills, but it was something. Driving home, she played the moment back. His infected leg, the dried blood, the quiet strength in his voice when he said, "Thanks, ma'am." It hit her again, the weight of what she'd done and what it had cost her. That night, Rachel sat at her kitchen table, her nursing book stacked beside a cold cup of tea she never touched. 10 years of discipline, ethics, late shifts, all set aside in a heartbeat to do what she felt was right. No manual prepared her for that kind of choice. She watched the shadows stretch across the floor, wondering what tomorrow would bring, without a hospital badge clipped to her shirt. Meanwhile, word spread. Quietly at first, a whisper in the staff lounge, a post online. Nurse punished for treating a vet. Welcome to modern healthcare. The internet exploded with opinions. Compassion over policy, always. She's a damn hero. My cousin came home from deployment with nothing. No one helped. Thank God for nurses like her. Riverbend Medical Center didn't issue any public response. No statement. No explanation. Rachel sat on her porch, watching the sky dim. Her phone buzzed endlessly. Messages from strangers, veterans, reporters. One message stood out. He told me everything. You don't know me, but I know him. I'm coming. No name, no contact details, just that. Inside the hospital, things were tense. The administrator, Martin Lanning, stuck to his line. This is about policy, not people. The next day, at exactly 10:08 a.m., the elevator doors opened. A tall man in full uniform, ribbons and all, stepped into the reception area. Silver stars gleamed on his shoulders. "Can I help you?" The security guard asked, stunned. "I'm here to speak with Nurse Rachel Meyers," the general said calmly. Staff peeked from behind stations. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "Is this about that veteran?" The administrator rushed down, trying to maintain control. "General, I wasn't informed." "I'm not here for a press stunt," the general said clearly. "I'm here because the nurse who was suspended helped someone I owe my life to." Later that day, the phones at Riverbend rang off the hook. Veterans groups from across the state demanded to know, "Is it true? You turned away a soldier?" Call after call. No prepared answers. Just apologies scribbled down for legal to review. Back at Rachel's home, a neighbor brought over homemade soup. "My boy came back from Kuwait broken," she said, placing the container on the porch. "A nurse helped him when no one else would. Folks like you, we remember." Rachel's inbox was overwhelmed. Job offers came from private clinics. Messages poured in from veteran advocacy groups. Even a few law firms offered pro bono support. Riverbend's internal environment shifted. Nurses began taking longer breaks. Admin tasks slowed. A subtle rebellion. A nurse wore a patriotic pin against the dress code. A junior doctor taped a handmade "We Stand with Rachel" sign in the break room. Martin Lanning, the same administrator who issued the suspension, called an emergency staff meeting. "This isn't about military service," he said stiffly. "This is about procedures and why we must follow them." A young RN raised her hand. "And what protects us from abandoning decency?" Lanning didn't reply. That evening, he reviewed Rachel's personnel file. Spotless. Flawless evaluations. 0 infractions. His phone rang. The board chair. "Martin," he said, "this story's going viral. A senator's aide just called. Fix this, or we're the ones under review." That night, Lanning stared at a blank statement draft, unsure how to defend a punishment he no longer believed. And at 9:20 a.m. the next morning, his assistant rushed into the office. "Sir, there's a government vehicle outside, and they're asking for Nurse Meyers. They mentioned your name, too." Martin Lanning looked out through the blinds and froze. A black SUV with official government plates idled at the curb. Soldier in dress uniform stood rigid beside the door, flags fluttering on the hood. "Did they say who they are?" Lanning asked, his voice tightening. "No, sir. Just that they're here for Nurse Meyers, and they asked for you specifically." The lobby had fallen silent again when the elevator chimed. Stepping out was a towering figure in a decorated army uniform. "General Lucas Hammond," he announced. "I'm here on behalf of Staff Sergeant Daniel Keegan, the man your nurse treated." Whispers rustled through the reception like dry leaves. Cameras clicked, phones filmed, nurses held their breath. Lanning approached cautiously. "General, I'd be happy to speak with you privately." "No," Hammond said, cutting him off. "This conversation should be public, just like her suspension was." The general held up a folded letter with a seal that caught the light. "This document has been sent to the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Governor's office." He held up a smaller envelope. "And this one is for Rachel Meyers." Lanning's mouth opened to protest, but the general wasn't finished. Daniel Keegan didn't ask for much, just a little help. What he got was shame and silence. He didn't want to tell his story, but I insisted, because what happened here needs to be a lesson. General Hammond turned to the front desk. "You rejected a war veteran because he couldn't show you an insurance card. But when I was hit by mortar fire in Kandahar, Sergeant Keegan didn't ask to see my benefits package. He just dragged me through gunfire with a shattered knee and got me to safety. Twice. His voice cracked slightly, but his eyes stayed locked on the administrator. Your nurse didn't see a patient without insurance. She saw a soldier in pain, and she acted. That's the kind of courage we teach our troops. That's what medical care is supposed to mean. Silence gripped the room. You could hear the hum of the soda machine from the corner. Where is Rachel? The general asked. She's outside, someone murmured. On the bench. Hammond turned, stepped out the front doors, and found her there, seated quietly, unsure what to do with herself. She looked up, eyes narrowing in confusion. General? He saluted sharply. Ms. Meyers, permission to thank you properly. I'm not in the military, she said awkwardly. No, but you haven't forgotten what we serve for. He handed her the sealed envelope. Inside, she found an invitation to be the keynote speaker at the National Healthcare Ethics Forum and a new job offer, Veteran Care Response Coordinator for the entire regional VA network. Camera shutters clicked. A few reporters gathered across the sidewalk. Rachel didn't say a word. She just stared at the hospital's ER doors. Will they change? She asked softly. The general followed her gaze. Only if people like you walk back in. Inside, the building. Nurses stood pressed against the glass, watching. Lanning's face had gone pale. He stepped out after them and cleared his throat. Nurse Meyers, he began, his voice wavering. Your suspension is lifted, effective immediately. A nurse inside clapped once, uncertain. Others followed, unsure if they were allowed. But soon, the entire waiting area was applauding. General didn't clap. That's not enough, he said coolly. Undoing a wrong isn't the same as making it right. Lanning looked cornered. Then what would you suggest I do? The general turned to Rachel, acknowledged that the failure wasn't hers, it was the system's. Rachel hadn't moved. She stood there, holding the envelope, absorbing the moment. Then, from the parking lot, another figure emerged. Daniel. Keegan himself. Standing straight, clean clothes, walking without assistance now. The infection was gone, but his presence carried more weight than words ever could. He joined the general, nodding silently at Rachel. Lanning's shoulders sagged. I owe you both an apology, he said. I lost sight of what really matters. Rachel gave a small, exhausted smile. What happens now? That depends on what's in that letter, the general replied. Weeks passed. Riverbend Medical hung a new plaque outside the emergency room. To those who lead with compassion before protocol, thank you. Rachel declined every interview request. But she did accept the new position. Her role, training hospital staff across the region on how to treat veterans with dignity. Lanning, formerly the strict enforcer of policies, was reassigned to an administrative post far from patient decisions. Quietly, the board enacted new guidelines. Any veteran needing emergency care would be treated immediately. No questions, no paperwork delays. 5 other hospitals across the state followed suit. Rachel's new office was once a dusty storage closet. Now it had a window, a plant, and a line of veterans dropping by for help or just to say thank you. Medical interns often asked her advice. Residents listened when she spoke. Even senior doctors began deferring to her insight when dealing with former military personnel. General Hammond didn't just deliver a letter. He delivered a plan, a blueprint for nationwide reform in veteran emergency care. Rachel began implementing it with quiet, focused resolve. One rainy Tuesday, exactly 4 months after Daniel first limped into that ER, Rachel found a small package on her desk. Inside was her old hospital badge, now framed next to a handwritten note. Some rules are worth breaking. Thanks for knowing which ones. It wasn't signed, but the handwriting belonged to Martin Lanning. Later that day, A fresh-faced intern caught her in the hallway. "Ms. Myers," he said, "I have a patient, former Marine, no insurance. Policy says to transfer him to the VA, but he's in bad shape." She smiled. "What does your gut tell you?" "That I should treat him here, now." "Then you already know what to do," he hesitated. "What if I get in trouble?" Rachel paused, then smiled again. "Then I'll call the general."